Kísérik a nénimet hangos muzsikával, engemet is kísérnek egész cincogrással. Öröme a néninek, cipra szabó legi, helyben égen síralom, szegény mondás legi.
The first question is very general, no? The first chapter of your book, La bellezza, della, buona, is on Marx. I would like that you explain in what consists your re-examination of Marx's theory of needs. Why needs? What do needs mean for the individuals?
So look, I wrote a book on Marx's theory of needs very long time ago. It was a fashionable book in Italy. I had 7 editions at Festivaletteratura in the 70s. Because at that time people were fed up with the paradigm of production. That basically the Marxian conception is founded on technology. So I changed the discourse. Insofar I said the basic, the fundamental thing for Marx is needs and not technology. Technology's function is to create new needs, but it's for needs that technology is created. So I started to put an emphasis on the concept of needs. In this book, what interested people was the concept of radical needs, in which I said that capitalism produces certain kind of needs which it cannot satisfy. And these are the radical needs. They were not yet present before capitalism. Capitalism developed these needs, but it cannot really satisfy the needs which it developed. And basically this is what people like that much on this book, because it suggested that capitalism needs to be overcome in order that the needs which were produced by capitalism should be satisfied. And this is why they like this book that much. Later on, I reformulated the problem of needs, or rather approached it from a different angle. The problem was raised by Marcuse, who distinguished between true and false needs. So he categorized the needs according to the kind of satisfaction they give to people, and said, for example, 2 pairs of shoes is a true need, but 6 pairs of shoes is a false need. And now I attacked Marcuse. That was the New Left period. I was a New Leftist, but I was absolutely satisfied with this conception, because I had the experience of Soviet societies, dictatorship over needs, and this is why I came up with the theory that all human needs should be acknowledged. That is the recognition of all human needs. And you cannot divide the human needs in true and false ones, because all human needs need to be recognized, because they are human needs. Only those people who feel needs know what their needs are.
Would it be correct to speak from this point of view about an anthropological universalism, which is quite different from a Kantian universalism of duty?
There was another angle, that was what you mentioned. It was and what I also meant, as told Francesca today. The anthropological universalism, that the kind of needs are so-called natural needs, which the satisfaction of which is necessary for the survival of the individual and for the survival of the species. And the satisfaction of these needs, without satisfaction of needs, the individual or the species cannot be reproduced. These are so-called natural needs, because without this, humankind would not exist. And these are universal, because in every world where humans Homo sapiens lived, its own reproduction of species is a natural need.
So this kind of minimal universalism is not sufficient.
It's an empirical universalism. I mean, it's not a normative universalism, it's an empirical universalism. But I started to speak about the other problem, whether true and false needs can be distinguished. I thought it cannot be distinguished, but also all needs should be recognized, or not all needs can be satisfied. So if you recognize all needs from this, doesn't follow that you at the same time satisfy those needs. And my example was very simple. A man tells a woman, I need you. The woman said, I'm sorry, I do not need you. She recognizes his needs, she cannot satisfy his needs. That's so simple. She can, but I said that if you express your needs, you do not need to use an argument. But if you do not satisfy the need of the other, you have to tell why not. Then you need to be argued. And non-satisfaction needs to be argued for, whereas the need itself does not need argument. I need you, okay. So you do not need to tell why I do need you. You need you, so, but when I say I do not need you, I have to give a reason why I don't want to satisfy his needs. So I said all needs should be recognized, but there is a moral condition. I use a moral condition, the Kantian concept. All needs should be recognized, except the needs, the satisfaction of which in principle, implies the use of other persons as mere means. For example, slavery. I can need a slave, need slaves. And I say, these needs should not be satisfied, recognized, because in principle, this need can be satisfied only by using another person as mere means, and not also an end in itself. These are excluded from the recognition of needs, this kind of needs. Now, it's very little Marx left here, but still my starting point was the Marxian concept of needs, and his distinction about, and the important thing about, he speaks about the historical character of needs and the system of needs. I think that's important. Needs are historical. I also spoke about this with the discussion with her, that you cannot say what is poverty, what is poor, who is poor, because needs are historically developing. As Marx said, for example, gene is a need for the English worker. Worker cannot live without gene. It is a historically created necessary need for a worker in England. You can say it's a historical necessary need created for ourselves. In a gypsy hut, there is a television set. So that the needs are historical. And the second, that you cannot speak about single needs separately, but a system of needs. That, you know, comes from Hegel, obviously. System der Bedürfnisse, that comes from Hegel, was taken over by Marx from Hegel. Now then a new problem started, and this is also represented in this volume, in this first introductory piece in the volume, that is the distinction between pre-modern and modern societies. That in pre-modern societies, needs have been attributed to certain groups of people together with their satisfiers, whereas nowadays needs are not attributed to anyone because everything happens in the market. And as a conclusion, satisfier not attributed to any group of people, a special satisfier for this group. So this is what I added in this paper, the distinction between modern and pre-modern societies as far as the allocation and satisfaction of needs are concerned.
Okay.
Thank you. Everyone takes a picture.
Of your theoretical proposal is the connection between needs and argumentation. Needs, expression of needs, and possibility of argumentating what a need is. And I think that this is something new because argumentation, so that from this point of view, the theory of argumentation can have its roots in the concrete individual, which is characterized by needs and not only by cognitive or communicative skills, capabilities, but needs. Very simple, very needs is basically something without words, but in an evaluative perspective, needs can be articulated, can be expressed, can be mediated by language, and this point was also an Hegelian one.
So I distinguish between needs and desires.
Yes.
In this respect, desires cannot be always expressed, and you don't even know what the target of your desire is. It can be undetermined, like anxiety. And subjective, not necessarily historical. But that's another problem.
And so a great role in your theory of your moral theory is played by the responsibility towards other people. And I understood this afternoon that you have something in common also with Levinas' perspective about otherness and about responsibility. But I would like to ask you if you think that God, or the presumption of God, is something necessary in order to have an ethical relationship with other people.
No, I think that's not necessary, absolutely. And I think God does not believe that it is necessary, if I may say so. Yeah? God believes that if I know what God believes, what basically this is what I assume that a person leave him out from this business. Yeah? Responsibility for the other human creature. You cannot be responsible for God because God is absolutely different from man, if I may say so. And if something's absolutely different from man, you cannot have any responsibility for God. So I think and Levinas believed that before the face of God, we have a responsibility, that He's the absolute other. But I don't think I would agree with this. Not even from a religious position would I accept this proposition.
So you think that, but would you like to think through your moral theory as a foundational theory or not foundational theory?
Self-foundational. That's why, look, it's a very good question because this is why I insisted also against Eleni, that we not opt for the good. Eleni, because it was a discussion partner, we do not opt for the good, we choose ourselves as good, because it's self-foundation. That is, it's not a foundation, but there is something good, I opt for it. That would be foundational. I think choose myself as a good person. It's self-foundation. I become what I am, it's self-foundation.
This is an Hegelian element because it reminds me the self-development of the spirit.
It's a very Kierkegaardian. So very Kierkegaardian, so because there is no, history has no place in it. That is, in Hegel everything has to do something which is for historical development. Because the whole is the truth is the end of history. And that's nothing in this, in my theory at least, nothing in this.
Okay.